You know how sometimes one little thing can change everything? Well, that's exactly what happened to me, Alice, just 2 weeks before my engagement party. I'm 27, and I was over the moon about marrying Tom, my boyfriend of 3 years. We'd been planning this shindig for months, and everything was falling into place. Then, bam! My mom called. Alice, cancel the engagement party, she barked into the phone. I nearly dropped my cell. What? Mom, are you kidding me? No jokes here. Emily just got promoted, and we're celebrating on your engagement day. Emily's my little sister, 3 years younger, and always been mom and dad's golden girl. But this? This was a whole new level of crazy. Mom, come on. I've been planning this for ages. I'm not canceling because Emily got a pat on the back at work, I said, trying not to lose it. Don't be selfish, Alice. This is big for your sister. Same guests, different party. Just reschedule. I felt my blood boiling. No way, Mom. This is my engagement we're talking about. I'm not canceling. End of story. She started screeching then, her voice so high it made me wince. I didn't even bother listening. I just hung up. Sitting there, staring at my phone, all these childhood memories came flooding back. It was always like this, Emily first, me, whenever. I remembered my sweet 16. Mom and Dad totally forgot until Grandma called to wish me happy birthday. They scrambled to throw together some lame celebration, a grocery store cake and a gift card. Talk about pathetic, especially compared to the 3-day bash they'd thrown for Emily's 13th just a few months earlier. That's when Tom walked in. One look at my face and he knew something was up. Alice, what's wrong? He asked, plopping down next to me. I spilled everything, the call, Mom's demands, the memories. He listened, his face getting darker with every word. That's bull, he said when I finished. We're not canceling anything. I nodded, so grateful for his support. I know. It's just, why can't they ever put me first? Just once. Because they're idiots, Tom said firmly. But I put you first. Always. I looked up at him, managing a small smile. I know. That's why I'm marrying you, dummy. We spent the rest of the night going over our plans, making sure everything was perfect. As I drifted off to sleep, I tried to push thoughts of my family out of my head. This was my time, my moment. I wasn't going to let them mess it up. The next morning, I woke up determined to forget about Mom's crazy call and focus on the party. I had a million things to do, invites to send, decorations to sort out, you name it. Then my phone pinged. It was my cousin Rachel. Hey Alice, everything okay with you and Tom? Heard you guys split up. I stared at my phone, totally confused. Where'd she get that idea? I typed back quick. What? No way. We're fine. Who told you that? Rachel's reply popped up. Weird. Aunt Linda said your mom told her the engagement was off. My stomach dropped like a stone. I called Rachel right away. What's going on? I asked as soon as she picked up. I don't know, Alice. Aunt Linda called last night. Said your mom told her you and Tom had this huge fight and called everything off. She said we should all go to Emily's promotion party instead. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Rachel, that's all lies. We're still engaged, the party's still on. Mom wanted me to cancel for Emily's thing, but I said no way. There was a pause. Oh, crap. Alice, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I spent the next hour on the phone with Rachel, piecing together what happened. Turns out, my mom had gone behind my back to cancel my engagement party. She'd called every single relative on the guest list, spinning this wild story about Tom and me breaking up, and redirected them all to Emily's promotion party. I took a deep breath, trying to calm down. I'm gonna fix this mess. Can you help spread the word that the engagement's still on? Of course, Rachel replied without missing a beat. I'll start calling people right now. After hanging up, I just sat on my couch, trying to wrap my head around it all. My own mother had tried to sabotage my engagement party. It was almost too crazy to believe. Tom found me there an hour later when he got home from work. One look at my face and he knew something was up. I told him everything: Mom's calls, the lies, the whole Emily party redirect. With each word, I could see the anger building in his eyes. "That's it," he said when I finished. "We're cutting them off. All of them. Your parents, Emily, the whole bunch." I knew he was right, but the thought of cutting off my family scared me. Who would I be without them? Even if they treated me like dirt, they were still my family. "Let's focus on fixing this first," I said. "We need to let everyone know the engagement's still on." Tom nodded, his jaw set. "Okay, where do we start?" We spent the rest of the night in damage control mode, sending emails, making calls, posting on social media. I wrote this long message explaining everything and sent it to everyone on our guest list. It was exhausting and humiliating, having to explain over and over that no, Tom and I hadn't broken up, and yes, the engagement party was still happening. By the time we finished, it was way past midnight. My voice was shot from all the talking, and my eyes burned from staring at screens. "We did it," Tom said, pulling me into a hug. "It's gonna be okay." I wanted to believe him, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Mom's betrayal had opened up old wounds. All the times I'd been overlooked, all the times Emily had been the favorite, it all came rushing back. The next day, I decided to visit Aunt Marge. She's Dad's sister and has always been pretty nice to me. I figured I'd invite her to the engagement party in person and clear up any confusion. When I got to her place, I heard voices coming from the living room. I was about to shout hello when I caught a snippet of conversation that made me freeze. "Can't believe Alice would do such a thing," Aunt Marge was saying. "Canceling her own engagement party to spite her sister. So childish." My heart sank. It was a new lie from my family, voiced in order to interrupt the previous fake. I was about to storm in and set things straight when another voice chimed in. "I know, right? Poor Emily must be crushed. After all that hard work to get promoted, and now Alice is trying to steal her thunder." I recognized that voice. It was my cousin Sarah. I always thought we were close, but there she was, gossiping about me behind my back. I couldn't take it anymore. I stepped into the room. "Is that what you really think of me?" Both women jumped like they'd seen a ghost. Aunt Marge recovered first, plastering on a fake smile. "Alice, sweetie, we didn't hear you come in." "Obviously," I said, my voice ice cold. "I came to invite you to my engagement party, but seems like you've already made up your minds about me." Sarah at least had the decency to look ashamed. "Alice, we didn't mean." "Save it," I cut her off. "I want to know exactly what Mom told you." For the next hour, I listened as they spilled the beans on Mom's tall tale. According to her, I threw a fit when I heard about Emily's promotion, demanding she reschedule her celebration. When Emily said no, I supposedly canceled my own engagement party out of spite, saying I'd rather not get married at all than share the spotlight. It was something new, a new lie from my family. By the time they finished, I was shaking with anger. "None of that is true," I said, my voice trembling. "Mom called me and demanded I cancel my engagement party for Emily's celebration. I said no, and now she's spreading lies to sabotage me." I told them everything: the forgotten birthdays, the constant comparisons, years of feeling like I was never good enough. By the time I finished, both women were in tears. "Oh, Alice," Aunt Marge said, reaching for my hand. "We had no idea. We should have known better than to believe such crazy stories." I took a deep breath, trying to calm down. "Look, I appreciate the apology. But right now, I need your help. The engagement party is still on, and I need you to spread the word. Can you do that?" They both nodded eagerly, looking relieved to have a chance to make things right. As I left Aunt Marge's house, I felt all mixed up, angry at Mom's betrayal, hurt that my family so easily believed the worst about me, but also a tiny bit hopeful. At least some of the truth was out now. The big day arrived, and boy, was I a bundle of nerves as Tom and I walked up to the hall. I held my breath as we pushed open the doors, bracing myself for whatever mess we might find inside. Holy cow! I couldn't believe my eyes. The place was buzzing with people. Smiling faces turned to greet us, and this warm, fuzzy feeling washed over me. The room was packed with relatives, not just the ones we'd managed to reach yesterday, but faces I hadn't seen in ages. I can't believe you all came, I said, my voice all choked up. Uncle Joe, Dad's brother, came up and gave Tom a hearty slap on the back. Of course we came. Did you really think we'd miss this? Though I gotta say, those rumors about your cancelled engagement sure spread like wildfire. Looks like they backfired big time. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Guess they did. As Tom and I made our way through the crowd, soaking up all the congrats and well wishes, I couldn't help but notice Mom, Dad, and Emily were nowhere to be seen. No texts, no emails, not even a grudging congrats. But surprisingly, their absence felt more like a relief than a letdown. Instead, I found myself gravitating towards Tom's parents, who were beaming at us with genuine pride and love. His mom hugged me tight, whispering, "We're so proud of you, Alice. You're already part of our family." The party was in full swing when suddenly, there was a commotion near the dance floor. I couldn't believe my eyes. There was my 80-year-old grandma in the middle, showing off what she called an incendiary dance of her youth. "Come on, you young uns," she called out, eyes twinkling mischievously. "Let me show you how we used to cut a rug back in my day." The crowd went wild as Grandma twirled and swayed, moving surprisingly well for her age. Soon, others joined in, and the dance floor turned into this amazing multi-generational dance-off. As I mingled with the guests, I couldn't help but overhear bits of gossip about all the family drama leading up to today. Can you believe what Alice's mother tried to pull? I heard cousin Sarah say to another relative. Trying to cancel her own daughter's engagement party for her other daughter's work thing? It's nuts. I know, the other voice replied. Poor Alice has always gotten the short end of the stick in that family. I'm glad she's finally standing up for herself. Instead of feeling embarrassed or upset by these chats, I felt validated. For once, my relatives were seeing the truth about my family dynamics, and they were on my side. As the night went on, I found myself feeling truly happy and celebrated, maybe for the first time ever. The absence of my immediate family, which I'd been so worried about, instead felt like this huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. The day after our kick-ass engagement party, Tom and I were chilling on the couch, reliving the awesome moments from last night when my phone rang. My stomach did a flip when I saw it was Mom calling. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Hello? You ungrateful, nasty girl." Mom's voice screeched through the speaker. "How dare you?" I held the phone away from my ear, her angry rant clear even at arm's length. Tom looked at me, worried, but I shook my head, signaling I'd handle it. "Mom, what?" "Don't you mom me," she cut me off. "You've humiliated your sister." Only 3 people showed up to her party. 3. And they were just those nosy old aunts who'd show up to the opening of an envelope. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. "I'm sorry you're disappointed, but..." "Disappointed?" "Emily is crushed. She cried all night. This was supposed to be her moment, and you ruined it with your selfishness." I felt my patience wearing thin. "Mom, I'd been planning my engagement party for months. Emily's promotion party was a last-minute thing, and she knew it clashed with my engagement. That's no excuse. Family comes first, Alice. But clearly, you wouldn't know anything about that." Before I could respond, she hung up on me. Immediately after the call, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Emily. "Hope you're happy. You've ruined everything. I'll make you pay for this humiliation." I showed the message to Tom, who frowned. "She can't be serious." The next 2 weeks were quiet, and I started to think maybe the storm had blown over. But then, one afternoon, there was a surprise knock at our door. I opened it to find Tom's parents standing there, looking worried. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, what a surprise. Is everything okay?" They exchanged a glance before Mrs. Thompson spoke. "Alice, dear, can we come in? We need to talk to you about something." My heart sank as I showed them to the living room. Once we were all seated, Mr. Thompson cleared his throat. "Alice, we've heard some troubling rumors. There's been talk that you've been cheating on Tom." I felt like I'd been slapped. "What? That's ridiculous. I would never." "We know, dear," Mrs. Thompson interrupted gently. "We've known you for years. We don't believe it for a second." Relief washed over me, quickly followed by anger as I realized where these rumors probably came from. "It's my sister," I said, my voice shaking a bit. "She threatened to get back at me for ruining her promotion party. She must be spreading these lies." Mr. Thompson nodded grimly. "We figured as much. We wanted to come to you directly rather than let these rumors spread." As they left, promising to help squash any rumors they heard, I felt all mixed up inside. I was touched by the Thompsons' support and trust in me, but I was also furious at Emily. How could she stoop so low? A few days after the drama with Tom's parents, I got a call from Grandma. Her voice, usually so cheery, sounded worried. "Alice, sweetie," she started. "I've heard about all this mess with your parents and Emily. Don't you think it's time to bury the hatchet?" I sighed, feeling the weight of her expectations. "Grandma, it's not that easy. They've really hurt me." "I know, honey, but they're family. Surely there's a way to patch things up." I could hear the plea in her voice, and it tugged at my heartstrings. Grandma had always been there for me, even when the rest of my family wasn't. I hated disappointing her. "What do you think I should do?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "Why don't you try reaching out? Make a peace offering. Show them you're willing to mend fences." I closed my eyes, torn between my love for Grandma and my need to protect myself. After a long moment, I sighed. "Okay, Grandma. I'll try. For you." That evening, I stood on my parents' doorstep, heart pounding. As soon as I stepped inside, I knew this wasn't going to go well. Emily was there, her face like thunder. "So," she spat, "you think you can just waltz in here and throw me a pity party?" "That's not what I started," but she cut me off. "I don't need your handouts, Alice. Do you think that makes up for what you did? I should have had my party on your day. Then people would have actually shown up." I stared at her, shocked by the venom in her voice. "Emily, I'm trying to make things right." "Make things right?" she screeched. "You ruined everything. As usual, it's all about you." I looked to my parents, hoping for some support, but they just stood there, nodding along with Emily's tirade. "She's right, Alice," Mom said. "You've always been so selfish." I felt something snap inside me. Without a word, I turned and walked out, ignoring their calls behind me. I visited my grandma again. She greeted me with a hopeful smile. "How did it go, dear?" Instead of answering, I pulled out my phone. I recorded the conversation. "Grandma, I think you need to hear this." Her eyes widened in surprise, but she nodded. I hit play, and Emily's furious voice filled the room. As the recording played, I watched Grandma's face change from hope to shock, then to deep disappointment. When it finished, there was a long silence. Then, to my surprise, Grandma reached out and took my hand. "Oh, Alice," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea it was this bad. I owe you an apology. I shouldn't have pushed you to reconcile." I felt tears prick my eyes. "It's okay, Grandma. You didn't know." She shook her head. "No, it's not okay. I should have believed you from the start. I just I wanted so badly for our family to be whole. We sat in silence for a while, both processing what had happened. Finally, Grandma spoke again. "Alice, dear, I want you to know something. Family isn't just about blood. It's about love, respect, and support. And from what I've seen and heard, Tom and his family give you that. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for choosing your own happiness." The morning after my heart-to-heart with Grandma, I woke up to my phone buzzing like crazy. It was a barrage of angry texts from my parents. My heart sank as I read them, realizing Grandma must have spilled the beans about the recording. "How dare you record our private conversations?" Mom's message screamed. "You're nothing but a sneaky, ungrateful snitch." Dad's message wasn't any better. "I can't believe you'd stoop so low as to secretly record us and then play it for your grandmother. You betrayed this family for the last time." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Even when faced with proof of their own nasty behavior, they still found a way to make me the bad guy. This latest betrayal was the last straw. I was done with my toxic family. In the weeks that followed, I tried to focus on work and my life with Tom. But Emily, it seemed, had other plans. Her vindictiveness went into overdrive as she launched a full-on harassment campaign against me. It started with whispers at work. Colleagues would suddenly clam up when I walked into a room, only to start whispering again the moment I left. I soon found out Emily had been spreading nasty rumors about me, everything from calling me incompetent to telling outright lies about my personal life. Then came the anonymous messages on social media. Hateful comments popped up on my posts, each one nastier than the last. I couldn't prove it was Emily, but the tone and content left little doubt in my mind. But Emily's cruelty hit a new low when she tried to contact Tom. One evening, he came home looking troubled. "Alice, I got a weird call today," he said. "It was Emily. She tried to tell me you were cheating on me." I felt the blood drain from my face. "What? Tom, you know that's not true." He quickly reassured me. "Of course I know that." I shut her down right away. "But Alice, this is getting out of hand." I nodded, feeling a mix of anger and exhaustion. "I know. I just don't know how to make it stop." As it turned out, I didn't have to do anything. Emily's obsession with revenge started to bite her in the butt. Her work started to suffer as she spent more and more time plotting against me. Her colleagues noticed her weird behavior, the constant whispering, the long stretches spent on her phone instead of working. It wasn't long before her bosses took notice. I heard through the office grapevine that Emily had gotten an official warning for her declining performance. But even that didn't seem to stop her. Then, about a month into her harassment campaign, the news broke. Emily had been demoted. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The very promotion she'd been so desperate to celebrate, the one that had kicked off this whole ugly mess, was now gone. After all the Emily drama died down, I threw myself into wedding planning like it was my job. We finally picked this gorgeous outdoor spot. Picture a fairy tale garden with this cute little gazebo where we'd say our I dos. As we stood there, imagining our big day, Tom gave my hand a squeeze. "You happy?" he asked softly. I looked up at him, feeling all warm and fuzzy inside. "Happier than I've ever been," I replied, and I meant it. With the venue locked down, we moved on to picking our wedding squad. I asked my ride-or-die friends, the ones who'd stuck by me through all the craziness, to be my bridesmaids. They all said yes, which was awesome. Then came the invite list. I sat at our dining table, addressing envelopes to all the relatives and friends who'd had our backs during the past few crazy months. As I wrote each name, I felt this wave of gratitude for these people who'd shown me what real family was all about. But when I got to the bottom of my list, I paused. There were 3 names I hadn't written: Mom, Dad, and Emily. I stared at those blank spaces, feeling all kinds of emotions swirling inside me. Tom found me there, staring at the paper. "You okay?" he asked, putting a comforting hand on my shoulder. I looked up at him, tears in my eyes. "I don't think I can invite them, Tom. After everything that's happened." He nodded, understanding. It's your call, Alice. Whatever you decide, I've got your back. I took a deep breath, then put down the pen. No, I said, my voice stronger than I expected. They don't deserve to be there. This day is about celebrating love and support, and that's not something they've shown me. As I said the words, I felt like this huge weight lifted off my shoulders. It was a bittersweet moment, realizing that cutting ties with my toxic family was the right move for my future. Yeah, there was sadness, but also this overwhelming sense of relief. The weeks flew by, and before I knew it, our wedding day was here. As I stood in front of the mirror in my bridal suite, fiddling with my veil, I was hit with this sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. As I walked down the aisle towards Tom, I saw the faces of those who'd stood by us. Tom's parents, beaming with pride, my grandma, dabbing at her eyes with a hanky, friends and relatives who'd chosen to support us despite all the family drama. These were my people, the ones who'd shown me what real love and support looked like. When I reached Tom, he took my hands in his eyes shining with love. As we said our vows, I felt this sense of rightness settle over me. This was where I belonged. At the reception, surrounded by laughter and joy, I had this big realization. My engagement party, all those months ago, wasn't just about celebrating our upcoming marriage. It was the first day of my new life, a life where I wasn't an outsider anymore, but the creator of my own happiness. As Tom and I swayed to our first dance as husband and wife, I rested my head on his shoulder, feeling truly at peace. The journey had been tough, yeah, but it had led me here, to a place of strength, wisdom, and genuine happiness. I love you, Tom whispered in my ear. I love you too, I replied, my heart full to bursting. In that moment, I knew that whatever life threw our way, we'd face it together. And for the first time in my life, I was excited about the future, not scared of it. This was my fresh start, and I was ready to dive in headfirst.
Hi, I'm Laura. Growing up, I always felt like a shadow in my family, constantly eclipsed by my brother Johnson. My parents never hid their disappointment in me. From the moment I was born, they seemed to regret my very existence. My birth had nearly cost my mother her life, and to make matters worse, I was born with a defect, a constant reminder of that traumatic time. You should have never been born, Laura. Look at what you did to your mother. My father's words echoed through the hollow halls of our home, his face twisted with anger and regret. My mother, on the other hand, barely acknowledged me unless it was to compare me unfavorably to Johnson. Why can't you be more like your brother? He excels at everything without even trying, she'd say, her hand smoothing his hair with pride, a pride she never showed me. Despite the coldness of home, I found a bit of peace during the short stays with my grandparents. Their home was a world away from mine, filled with warmth and laughter, two things that were in short supply at my house. Laura, come help me in the garden, my grandmother would call, her voice gentle and inviting. Those moments, planting flowers and harvesting vegetables, were my escape from the harsh reality waiting for me at home. Why do your parents keep you locked up in that gloomy house? You need sunlight, fresh air, and friends your age, my grandfather would often grumble after a few glasses of iced tea on the porch. I don't know, Grandpa, I'd shrug. They say it's because I'm not strong enough, or that I might get hurt. I tried to hide the pain that their words would resurface. But you're strong, Laura. Stronger than anyone I know, he'd insist, squeezing my hand with surprising strength for his age. One summer, the stark difference between my two worlds became unbearable. As I watched Johnson blow out the candles on yet another birthday cake I was never invited to share, something inside me broke. Why do I even exist if I'm such a burden? I whispered to myself, the words barely audible but heavy with the sorrow of my young heart. That night, under the cover of darkness, I packed a small bag, just a few treasures. A worn-out doll, a book of fairy tales, and a photo of my grandparents. With silent tears streaming down my face, I made my way to the only place I ever felt wanted. The knock on my grandparents' door was the hardest thing I ever done. But when they opened it, their concern quickly turned to determination. Laura, whatever it is, we're here for you, my grandmother said, pulling me into a hug that felt like the safety I'd longed for my entire life. That night, as I lay in the guest room, surrounded by the comforting sounds of their home, I knew something had to change. I couldn't keep living in the shadows, unloved and neglected. It was time to fight for the life I deserved, with the only people who had ever truly loved me. "Laura, it's time you started school like other kids your age," Grandma declared one morning at breakfast. Her words were firm, and the determined look in Grandpa's eyes left no room for argument. "But what about Mom and Dad? They don't think I'm ready," I mumbled, fiddling nervously with my spoon. "We'll handle your parents. You need education and friends, not isolation," Grandpa said, his tone leaving no room for doubt. Later that day, they drove me home to confront my parents. The tension in the air was thick as Grandpa knocked on the door. "Johnson and Laura should have equal opportunities, and Laura has been kept in the dark for too long," Grandpa declared as soon as the door opened. "This is none of your business," my father snapped, his voice cold and dismissive. "It is our business when you neglect our granddaughter," Grandma shot back, her voice steady but filled with an anger I'd never heard before. After much discussion, and the undeniable logic of my grandparents, my parents reluctantly agreed to enroll me in school. My first day was a whirlwind of excitement and terror. I clutched my backpack tightly as I walked into the classroom, already feeling the weight of curious eyes on me. "Why do you look so weird?" a boy sneered at recess. I tried to shrink away, but his words stung, echoing the cruel remarks I'd grown up hearing. Despite the bullying, I found refuge in books and the certainty of numbers. Equations made sense when the world around me didn't. But one day, the teasing turned physical. Some older kids cornered me behind the gym. Johnson, who was in the same school, turned a blind eye. "Leave me alone," I shouted, my back pressed against the cold brick wall. "What are you gonna do, freak?" Jared, the leader, sneered, his face twisted in a cruel smirk. Without thinking, I swung the textbook I was holding, hitting him square in the nose. Shocked by what I'd done, I ran, tears blurring my vision, not stopping until I was home. Bursting through the front door, I was met by my father's angry glare. "Causing trouble at school now? Can't you do anything right?" he bellowed, advancing toward me. I was defending myself. I yelled back, anger rising in my chest. For once, I was fed up with being the victim. His hand lifted, but before it could come down, my mother stepped in. "John, stop. She's just a child," she said, grabbing his arm. "Stay out of this," he snapped, but that brief hesitation gave me the chance to slip away. I ran straight to my grandparents' house, sobbing as I told them what had happened. "They can't keep treating you like this, Laura." "It's not right," Grandma whispered, holding me tightly. "We're going to do something about this, once and for all," Grandpa added, his jaw set with determination. And I knew they would. They had always been the ones to fight for me. As I fell asleep in my old, comforting bed that night, for the first time in my life, I dared to hope. Hope that things could be different, that I could be more than the unwanted child. The morning after my return, Grandma and Grandpa were already on the phone, their voices filled with urgency and determination. They were talking to a lawyer, a family friend who specialized in family law. "They've gone too far this time. It's not just neglect, it's abuse," Grandpa argued into the phone, his hand gripping the receiver tightly. Grandma paced back and forth, jotting down notes. "We need to file for emergency custody. Laura isn't safe there," she said firmly. The next few weeks blurred by in a whirlwind of meetings and legal documents. I learned terms like custody and guardianship, words I had never needed to know before. I was caught between fear of what my parents might do and relief that finally someone was standing up for me. At the custody hearing, my parents arrived wearing masks of concern, a far cry from the indifference I'd known all my life. "We love our daughter and want what's best for her," my father said to the judge, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "He's lying," I whispered to Grandma, gripping her hand tightly. The judge looked at me, his expression unreadable. "And what do you think is best for you, Laura?" he asked. My heart pounded as I took a deep breath. "I want to stay with my grandparents. They care about me," I said, my voice trembling but determined. There was a heavy silence in the room. Then the judge nodded slowly, making notes. "We'll consider your wishes, Laura," he said. A few days later, the judge granted temporary custody to my grandparents. In that courtroom, my parents' masks cracked, their anger barely contained. "You're stealing our daughter," my mother hissed as they stormed out. "We're saving her," Grandpa replied quietly, his arm protectively around me. Back at my grandparents' house, life began to change. I had my own room, painted a soft light blue with white trimmings, a stark contrast to the dark, neglected space I had at my parents' house. "Let's plant a garden just for you," Grandma suggested one sunny morning. "You can choose whatever you want to plant." As we dug into the earth, planting tomatoes, carrots, and sunflowers, something inside me began to heal. The simple act of caring for something and watching it grow was therapeutic. Grandpa and I spent afternoons discussing legal strategies and chess strategies too. "Life's a bit like chess, Laura. You have to think ahead, plan your moves," he said, tapping a pawn gently. "And what if something unexpected happens?" I asked, moving my knight. "Then you adapt, just like you're doing now," he said, smiling with pride in his eyes. Evenings were filled with baking with Grandma or watching old movies wrapped in blankets on the couch. Laughter became a common sound, and for the first time, I started to feel like I belonged. As the final custody hearing approached, anxiety gnawed at me. But Grandma squeezed my hand and whispered, "No matter what happens, you're home now, Laura." In that moment, surrounded by their love and support, I understood what it meant to have a sanctuary. It wasn't just a place, it was where I could be myself, safe and cherished. When we arrived at the courthouse, it was quiet, almost solemn. My heart raced as we awaited the judge's final decision. Grandma and Grandpa sat beside me, their presence as reassuring as ever. The judge reviewed his notes, then looked up, meeting my anxious gaze. "After reviewing all the evidence and considering Laura's best interests, I grant permanent custody to her grandparents," he said. A wave of relief washed over me, so powerful it felt almost tangible. Grandma squeezed my hand, tears of joy and relief in her eyes, while Grandpa nodded, his expression one of quiet triumph. Outside the courthouse, the air had never tasted sweeter. "We did it, Laura. You're safe now," Grandma whispered, hugging me tightly. But they didn't stop there. Ever the strategist, Grandpa had one more move to make. "It's time to secure your future completely," he said one evening, showing me documents for their will. My parents' names were conspicuously absent, replaced by mine. "This is your inheritance now. We want you to have security, something they never gave you," he explained, signing the document with a steady hand. The finality of that act was not just legal but deeply symbolic. It was a clear statement. My grandparents were my true family, the ones who truly cared about my well-being. With the custody battle behind us, I began to truly heal that spring when Grandma found a therapist who specialized in family trauma. Talking about my feelings, something I'd never been able to do, was both challenging and liberating. "You're doing great, Laura," my therapist would often say, her voice full of encouragement. "It's okay to feel these emotions. It's part of the healing process." Slowly but surely, I started to open up. School became a haven for me, free from the shadows of my past. My grades improved dramatically, and I discovered a deep love for science. The logical processes and discoveries mirrored my own journey of healing and self-discovery. "Look at this, Grandpa," I'd say proudly, showing him my latest science project on plant growth. "It's about how the right environment can influence growth." "Just like you, Laura," he'd reply, his voice thick with emotion. "You've grown so much." As the seasons changed, so did I. Each day brought new challenges, but also new joys. I learned to play the piano, filling the house with music, something my old home had never known. Grandma and I would sing along, our voices blending in harmony. Life was no longer about surviving each day, it was about truly living. My grandparents' unwavering support became my foundation, their love the walls that protected me, and their wisdom the roof that sheltered me from any storm. One sunny morning, as we planted a new batch of sunflowers in the garden, Grandma smiled at me, a smile that spoke volumes. "You've turned the tables, Laura. You've taken control of your story." As I watered the young plants, watching them reach toward the sun, I realized she was right. I had turned the tables. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. That evening, as I stood in front of the mirror adjusting my dress for the celebration, I couldn't help but reflect on the long journey that had brought me here. From a neglected, unwanted child to a young woman surrounded by love and purpose, my transformation felt almost unimaginable. Today wasn't just any birthday. It marked the launch of my New Beginnings, the New Beginnings Child Advocacy Foundation. With the inheritance Grandma and Grandpa had secured for me, I established the foundation to help children like me, providing them with educational and legal resources to rebuild their lives. Laura, are you ready? Everyone's starting to arrive. Grandma called from downstairs, her voice filled with excitement. Coming down the stairs, I was greeted by a house full of friends, family, and supporters, all gathered to celebrate not just my birthday, but the new chapter I was embarking on. The room was decorated with balloons and banners, the laughter and chatter creating a warm, inviting atmosphere. As I mingled with the guests, I shared my vision for the foundation. With new beginnings, we can give children the support they need to heal and thrive. No child should ever feel alone or unloved. I explained, my passion evident. Guests nodded, offering words of encouragement. Laura, this is wonderful. You're making a real difference, a local teacher said, her eyes shining with admiration. Later that evening, Grandpa stood up to make a toast. To Laura, who has shown us all the strength of her spirit and the depth of her heart. You've turned pain into purpose, and we're all so proud of you. Glasses clinked, and cheers filled the room. I felt my eyes well with tears, not of sadness, but of overwhelming gratitude. Grandma came over and wrapped her arm around me. Happy birthday, dear. This is just the beginning. As the night drew to a close, I looked around at the joyful faces, the room filled with genuine love and support. It was a stark contrast to the lonely, loveless birthdays of my childhood. Now I was surrounded by a community that believed in me and the cause I was fighting for. Stepping out into the garden for a moment of quiet, I gazed up at the stars. The night was peaceful, the air fresh with the promise of spring. I thought about all the children my foundation would help, the lives that could be transformed because someone cared. In that moment, I knew that every struggle I had faced was part of a larger journey. I had found my purpose, and I was exactly where I was meant to be. With a heart full of hope and a clear vision for the future, I was ready to change the world, one child at a time. Turning back to join the party, I carried with me a sense of peace. This was more than just a new beginning for me, it was a new hope for so many others. And as laughter and music filled the air, I celebrated not just my birthday, but the beauty of turning dreams into reality. Now that Laura's story has come to an end, what do you think is the most crucial support system for children facing neglect? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hey everyone, I'm Olivia. I'm 17, a high school senior living in this typical suburban town. Sounds pretty normal, right? Well, things aren't always as they seem. I live with my parents, John and Linda, and my older brother, Mark. He's 19, and let's just say we don't exactly get along. See, cycling is my passion. It's my escape, and I've been training hard for an upcoming local competition. I'm actually pretty good at it, if I do say so myself. But Mark? He hates it. Every time I hit a new personal best or when our parents cheer me on, I can practically see the jealousy eating him alive. Great job on your training today, Olivia, Mom said one evening after dinner. Thanks, Mom. I shaved another 30 seconds off my route. I noticed Mark rolling his eyes from across the room. Big deal. It's just riding a bike, he muttered under his breath. Dad stepped in, trying to smooth things over. Now, Mark, your sisters worked hard. We should all be proud. Whatever, Mark grumbled, storming off to his room. My best friend Emily gets it though. We were hanging out in my room later that night, and I vented about Mark's attitude. He's just jealous, Liv, Emily said, flipping through a magazine. You're actually doing something with your life. I guess. I just wish he'd grow up already, you know. At least I have my cycling coach, Mr. Thompson, to lean on. During training, he always pushed me to be better. You've got real talent, Olivia, he told me after a grueling practice. Keep this up and you could go far. But things at home were only getting worse. One night, I overheard my parents whispering. John, we need to do something about Mark and Olivia, Mom said. They're just being siblings, Linda. It'll blow over, Dad replied. I wanted to scream. This wasn't normal sibling rivalry, it felt like something more. The next morning, I headed to the garage for my usual preschool training session. I was pumped knowing I had an important practice later, but as I reached for my bike, something felt wrong. I knelt down to check, and my heart sank. The brake lines had been cut. I stood there frozen, staring at the clean slice. This wasn't an accident. Someone had done this on purpose, and I had a sinking feeling I knew exactly who. As I heard footsteps approaching the garage, I straightened up, my mind racing. How was I going to handle this? And more importantly, who could I trust? I found Mark in the kitchen, acting like nothing had happened. "Did you cut my brake lines?" I asked, my voice shaking. He looked at me like I was insane. "What? No way. Why would I do that?" "Because you're jealous," I snapped. "You can't stand that I'm good at something." Our parents rushed in, hearing the commotion. I explained about the brake lines, but they didn't seem to understand the seriousness of it. "Honey, are you sure it wasn't just wear and tear?" Mom suggested. "Yeah, Olivia. Stop being so dramatic," Mark smirked. I felt like I was losing my mind. No one believed me. Later that day, I met up with Emily at our favorite coffee shop. "I don't know what to do, Em. They think I'm overreacting," I said, exasperated. "That's messed up, Liv. You need to be careful," she warned, and I nodded, feeling just a little less alone. At my next practice, I confided in Mr. Thompson. "Olivia, this is serious. Don't take any chances with your safety," he said. Taking his advice, I started using my backup bike for training. But I couldn't shake the feeling of dread. A few days later, I overheard Mark on the phone in his room. He sounded stressed. "Drake, I swear I'll get you the money." "No, you don't understand. I can't ask my parents." "Money troubles?" Was that why he'd been acting so weird? Things took an even scarier turn during my next practice run. I was flying down a hill when suddenly my gears jammed. I barely managed to stop without crashing. When I inspected the bike, I found metal shavings in the gears. This wasn't an accident. That night, I made a decision. I set up a small camera in the garage, hidden behind some old paint cans. Days went by, and nothing happened. I started to think maybe I was being paranoid. But then, one afternoon as I reviewed the footage, my blood ran cold. There was Mark, clear as day, tampering with my bike. He was messing with the water bottle, likely putting something in it, something dangerous. My hands shook as I reached for my phone. This was it. No more doubts, no more second chances. 911. "What's your emergency?" "I need help," I stammered. "My brother has been sabotaging my bike. I have video evidence." As I waited for the police, a wave of emotions hit me. Relief that I wasn't imagining things, anger at Mark's betrayal, fear of what could have happened if I hadn't caught him. But more than anything, I felt a steely resolve. No one was going to hurt me anymore. Not even family. The police arrived faster than I expected. I led them to the garage, my heart pounding. "This way, officers. I have it all on video." We watched the footage together, and I could see the shock on their faces. One officer turned to me, his voice serious. "Mom, this is no joke. We'll need to question your brother." Just then, my parents burst in, their faces stricken with panic. "What's going on here?" Dad demanded. Mom's eyes widened when she saw the police. "Olivia, what have you done?" I couldn't believe it. Even now, they were defending Mark. "What I've done? Look at what he did," I shouted, pointing at the screen. Dad tried to intervene. "Officers, there's been a misunderstanding. Our daughter is overreacting." Overreacting? My anger boiled over. "He could have killed me," I yelled. The police remained firm, despite their discomfort. "Sir, we have to investigate this." As they led Mark away for questioning, he shot me a venomous glare. "You'll regret this, Olivia." The next few days were a blur of frustration and heartache. My parents kept begging me to drop the charges. "He's your brother, Olivia. Family sticks together," Mom pleaded. I looked at her, my voice cold. Family doesn't try to hurt each other. I couldn't take it anymore. I called my Aunt Karen, my mom's sister. "Aunt Karen, I don't know what to do. No one believes me." Her voice was warm and soothing on the other end. "Oh, honey, you can stay with me if you need to." That night, I packed a bag, ignoring my parents' desperate protests. As I was leaving, Dad made one last attempt. "Olivia, please, think about what this will do to our family." I turned to face them, tears stinging my eyes. "You should have thought about that before choosing Mark over me." At Aunt Karen's house, I finally felt safe, but the emotional toll was heavy. Most nights, I cried myself to sleep, trying to wrap my mind around how my family could betray me like this. A week later, the real shock came. The police uncovered Mark's involvement in a local drug ring. He owed money to some guy named Drake, and was desperate to pay it back. Aunt Karen sat me down gently. The police think he was sabotaging your cycling to distract your parents or maybe even planning to sell your bikes. He might have even hoped for an accident to cash in on insurance. It all made sense. The late-night phone calls, his erratic behavior. But knowing the truth didn't make the betrayal hurt any less. As I sat on Aunt Karen's porch that evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I had a realization. This wasn't just about Mark anymore. It was about me, choosing myself, my safety, my future. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. "You okay, sweetie?" Aunt Karen asked, joining me on the porch. I nodded slowly. "I will be. I'm just done letting them hurt me." She squeezed my hand. "You're stronger than you know, Olivia, and I'll be here for you every step of the way." I took a deep breath, feeling a weight lifting off my shoulders. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face it, on my own terms. It's been 6 months since I moved in with Aunt Karen, and so much has changed. I've thrown myself into cycling and school, using them as anchors in the emotional storm I've been navigating. "Olivia, you've qualified for nationals," Mr. Thompson announced one day during practice. My teammates erupted in cheers, and for the first time in a long while. That evening, I felt pure, unadulterated joy as Aunt Karen and I celebrated over bowls of ice cream. "I'm so proud of you, honey. You've come so far," she said, her voice full of warmth. I nodded, emotions swirling inside me. "I couldn't have done it without you, Aunt Karen." The next day, I got a call from Mom. Mark had been sentenced to 3 years for drug charges and attempted harm. As much as I felt a strange sense of relief, there was also sadness for what could have been. "Olivia, your father and I, we're so sorry. We should have believed you," Mom said, her voice cracking with regret. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I appreciate that, Mom, but I need time. I can't just pretend like nothing happened." Setting boundaries was hard, but necessary. I threw myself into my training and started mentoring younger cyclists, sharing my story in hopes that others could recognize and escape toxic situations before it was too late. One day after practice, a young girl named Zoe approached me. "Your story, it helped me stand up to my bullying cousin." "Thank you." Moments like these made everything worth it. As the national championship approached, I poured all my energy into preparation. On the day of the race, I stood at the starting line, my heart pounding. "On your marks." As I pedaled, flashes of the past months played in my mind. The cut brake lines, the betrayal, the nights I cried myself to sleep. But I also thought about the strength I'd found, the people who stood by me, and the lives I'd touched. I didn't win the race, but I beat my personal best by a mile. Crossing the finish line, I felt like I was flying. "You did it, Olivia," Emily screamed from the sidelines, waving wildly. Mr. Thompson gave me a proud nod. "That's my star pupil." Later, as the adrenaline faded, Aunt Karen handed me an envelope. "This came for you today." Inside was a letter offering me a full cycling scholarship to State University. I could hardly believe it. I did it. I really did it," I whispered, tears welling up in my eyes. That night, as I lay in bed, I reflected on my journey. The pain was still there, a dull ache in my chest, but it no longer defined me. I thought about Mark, about my parents. I hoped they were healing too, in their own way, but I knew now that I couldn't set myself on fire to keep others warm. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt at peace. Tomorrow was a new day, full of possibilities, and I was ready to face it head-on, pedaling toward my future with strength, resilience, and hope. My name is Olivia, and this is my story of survival, of rising from the ashes. Remember, no matter how dark things seem, there's always a way forward. You just have to be brave enough to take that first step. What would you have done in Olivia's position? Would you have pressed charges against your own brother, or tried to handle it within the family? Hey there, I'm Ashley. I'm 35, a marketing executive, and the sole breadwinner for my family of 4. Lately, life's been a balancing act, but I'm holding it together. It's 6 a.m., and my alarm blares. I drag myself out of bed, careful not to wake Harry. He's still snoring and won't be up for hours. I tiptoe to the kitchen and start the coffee maker. The smell of caffeine is sometimes the only thing keeping me going. "Mom, where's my science project?" Emma's voice echoes from upstairs. "Check the dining room table, sweetie." I call back, scrambling eggs for breakfast. Liam shuffles in, rubbing his eyes. I don't want to go to school today, he mutters. Come on, champ, you've got this. I ruffle his hair and slide a plate in front of him. The morning rush is always chaos. Packing lunches, signing permission slips, and trying to gulp down my home breakfast. Harry finally emerges. Babe, can you give me $20? Meeting the guys later. I hesitate. Harry, we're tight this month. Maybe skip it. He rolls his eyes. I never ask for anything. Don't be so controlling. I bite my tongue and hand over the cash, not wanting to argue. After dropping the kids at school, I race to the office. My boss, Michael, catches me in the elevator. Ashley, just the person I wanted to see. That proposal you worked on. The client loved it. Keep this up, and we might be talking about that corner office soon. I beam with pride. Thanks, Michael. I'm giving it my all. The day flies by in a blur of meetings and deadlines. By the time I leave, it's dark. I pick up the kids from my neighbor and head home, already planning dinner in my head. As I pull into the driveway, I see Sarah waiting on the porch, her face tight with worry. Ash, we need to talk, she says as soon as I step out of the car. I tell the kids to go inside and start their homework before turning to Sarah. What's up? She takes a deep breath. I saw Harry at the bar today with some woman. They looked cozy. My heart sinks, but I force a smile. Probably just a friend. You know Harry, always Mr. Social. Sarah grabs my hand. Ash, you can't keep making excuses. You're running yourself ragged while he does nothing. It's not fair. I pull away, defensive. He's just going through a rough patch. He'll find a job soon. Sarah looks like she wants to say more but shakes her head. Just take care of yourself, okay? I nod, watching her leave. Inside, Harry sprawled on the couch, beer in hand. Hey babe, what's for dinner? I'm starving. I swallow my frustration and head to the kitchen. Just another day in paradise, right? But as I chop vegetables, a nagging feeling grows inside me. Something's got to give, and soon. A few weeks later, I'm trudging through the mall, trying to find the perfect Christmas gifts for the kids. My phone buzzes, another text from Harry asking for money. I sigh and type a quick okay before shoving the phone back in my pocket. Back at work, I'm knee-deep in a presentation when Michael pops his head in. Ashley, you're not going to believe this. We landed the Pearson account. I jump up, nearly spilling my coffee. No way, that's amazing. All thanks to your pitch. You really knocked it out of the park. Keep this up, and that promotion's as good as yours. I'm riding high on the drive home, planning to surprise Harry with the news. But as I pull into the driveway, his car is still there. Weird, he usually meets his buddies on Thursdays. I unlock the door quietly, hearing Harry's voice from the living room. His tone is low, intimate. I miss you too, Lisa. Don't worry, I'll figure something out. We'll be together soon, I promise. My heart stops. Lisa. Who the hell is Lisa? I step into the room, and Harry's head snaps up, his face pale. Gotta go, he mumbles into the phone before hanging up. Who's Lisa? I ask, my voice trembling. His eyes narrow. Were you spying on me? Jesus, Ashley, can't I have any privacy? Don't turn this around on me. I heard you. Who is she? You're being paranoid. Lisa's just a friend. Maybe if you weren't so busy with work all the time, you'd know what's going on in my life. It feels like a slap. Are you kidding me? I'm working insane hours to support this family while you do nothing. Oh, here we go again, he sneers. Poor martyr Ashley, so overworked and underappreciated. You should be grateful I put up with your nagging. I'm speechless. How did this become my fault? He grabs his coat. I'm going out. Don't wait up. The door slams behind him, leaving me alone in the silence. I sink onto the couch, my mind spinning. What just happened? The next day, I meet Sarah for coffee. As soon as I sit down, the tears start flowing and I spill everything. Oh honey, you know this isn't right, don't you? He's manipulating you, Sarah says, her voice full of concern. I shake my head. But what about the kids? Christmas is coming. I can't ruin everything right now. Sarah's eyes flash with anger. And what about you, Ash? Don't you deserve better than this? I don't have an answer. Instead, I throw myself into Christmas preparations, pretending everything is fine. I bake cookies with Emma, help Lion write his letter to Santa, and try to ignore the gnawing pit in my stomach every time Harry's phone buzzes. Babe, I'm sorry about the other day. I've just been stressed, you know. Harry says one evening, how about we forget about it and have a great Christmas? I want to scream, to demand answers, but Emma and Liam are watching us with wide eyes. I can't shatter their world. Not yet. So I force a smile and nod. Sure, honey. Let's have a great Christmas. Christmas Eve comes, and I'm rushing through the crowded mall, grabbing last-minute stocking stuffers. My phone buzzes nonstop, Harry, asking when I'll be home. He probably wants me to start on Christmas dinner. I pull into the driveway, arms full of bags, but something feels off. The lights are on, but the house feels empty. I fumble with my keys and push the door open. Harry? Kids? I'm home. Silence, then footsteps. Harry appears in the hallway, his face cold. Finally decided to show up, huh? I frown, setting the bags down. What are you talking about? Where are the kids? At your sister's. I needed to talk to you. Alone. My stomach drops. That's when I see them, my suitcases, sitting in the living room. Harry, what's going on? He crosses his arms, his voice emotionless. I want you out, Ashley, tonight. I laugh nervously. Very funny. Come on, help me with these presents. I'm not joking. He cuts me off. I'm done pretending. You're never here. Always at work. The kids need a real parent, not someone who's married to their job. It feels like a punch to the gut. Are you insane? I work hard for this family while you sit around doing nothing. His eyes narrow. See, this is exactly why you need to go. Always criticizing, never appreciating what I do. Well, I found someone who does. Lisa understands me. The world tilts sideways. Lisa, the woman you were talking to on the phone. He nods, a cruel smile tugging at his lips. That's right, we met online. She's everything you're not, supportive, loving, present. Tears sting my eyes. You can't do this. It's Christmas Eve, for God's sake. Perfect time for a fresh start, he shrugs. New year, new life. Without you. I'm shaking now, anger and fear battling inside me. The kids. We'll be fine, he interrupts, his voice cold and calculated. In fact, I'll be filing for full custody. After all, what judge would give the kids to a workaholic mother with no family to help out? The low blow hits hard. He knows I'm an orphan. He knows how much that hurts. You bastard, I whisper. Face it, Ashley. You've got nowhere to go, no one to turn to. You're all alone, just like always. I'm sobbing now, pleading. Please, Harry, don't do this. We can work it out. But he's not listening. With one final push, I'm stumbling out onto the porch, my bags tumbling after me. The door slammed shut behind me. I stand there, numb with shock, staring at the closed door. The Christmas wreath mocks me with its cheerful ribbons. Inside, I hear Harry on the phone. Hey babe, it's done. Come on over. Reality crashes down. This is really happening. I'm homeless on Christmas Eve. With shaking hands, I pull out my phone and dial Sarah's number. Ash, what's wrong? Her voice is thick with sleep. He kicked me out. I choke out, my voice barely above a whisper. Harry, he's leaving me for someone else. That son of a... Sarah cuts herself off. I'm coming to get you right now. Don't move. I nod, forgetting she can't see me, and sink down onto my suitcase. The night is cold, but I barely feel it. Headlights appear down the street, and for a moment, I think it's Sarah. But then I see her. A blonde woman, practically bouncing as she walks up Harry's, driveway. She knocks on the door, and it opens immediately. Harry pulls her into a kiss. Lisa. It has to be. I turn away, unable to watch. Moments later, Sarah's car pulls up. Sarah leaps out of her car and pulls me into a tight hug. Oh honey, I'm so sorry. Come on, let's get you out of here. As we drive away, I catch one last glimpse of the house in the rearview mirror. The Christmas lights twinkle merrily, oblivious to the fact that my entire world has just shattered. What am I going to do? I whisper. We'll figure it out together. You're not alone, Ash. I promise. But as the house disappears from view, I can't help but feel like I've lost everything. Merry Christmas to me, right? The first few weeks after Christmas are a blur. I crash on Sarah's couch, throwing myself into work to avoid thinking about it all. Michael notices my renewed drive. Ashley, your performance lately has been exceptional. I think it's time we talked about that promotion. I blink, surprised. Really? Even after? He smiles warmly. Your personal life doesn't define your professional worth. The job's yours if you want it. With shaking hands, I sign the contract. The pay raise will help with the divorce costs. Speaking of which, I meet Linda, my new lawyer, later that day. She's a force of nature in a power suit. So he kicked you out on Christmas Eve. What a charmer, she scoffs, flipping through my case file. Don't worry, we'll nail him to the wall. And nail him we do. Linda uncovers years of financial records showing Harry's complete dependence on me. But the real bombshell drops a month into the proceedings. You're not going to believe this, Linda says, striding into her office where I'm waiting. Your husband's girlfriend? She cleared out his bank accounts and disappeared. Turns out she's wanted in 3 states for running similar scams. I can't help but laugh. The divorce hearing is brutal. Harry shows up looking disheveled, begging the judge for leniency. But as the evidence of his infidelity, financial irresponsibility, and emotional manipulation mounts, I see the judge's expression harden. In light of the evidence presented, I'm granting full custody to Mrs. Walker. Mr. Walker will pay child support as outlined in the agreement. Harry's face crumples. But where am I supposed to go? What about the house? The judge's voice is ice cold. Perhaps you should have considered that before your actions, Mr. Walker. As we leave the courthouse, a weight lifts off my shoulders. Emma and Liam run to hug me, and for the first time in months, I feel hope. How's it feel to be free? Sarah asks. I grin. Honestly, amazing. Oh, guess what? I started a support group at work for women going through similar situations. You should see how many people showed up. Sarah beams. Look at you, turning pain into purpose. I'm so proud of you, Ash. Just then, my phone buzzes. Harry's name flashes on the screen. I hesitate for a moment, then decline the call. Everything okay? Sarah asks. I nod, smiling. Yeah, actually, everything's great. Later that night, as I tuck the kids into bed, Liam asks, Mom, are you happy now? I pause, really thinking about it. You know what, sweetie? I really am. Emma pipes up. We are too. It's nice seeing you smile again. I hug them both tightly, feeling tears prick at my eyes. But for once, they're happy tears. As I settle onto the couch, my phone buzzes again. Another call from Harry. This time, I block the number without hesitation. Looking around at my new home, filled with warmth and love, I realize something. This isn't an ending. It's a beginning. And for the first time in years, I'm excited to see what the future holds. That's my story. Now, I have a question for all of you. If you were in my shoes, would you have given Harry a second chance after discovering his secretive behavior? Or would you have confronted him immediately? Where do you draw the line between being supportive and being taken advantage of in a relationship? Share your thoughts in the comments below.